and you're watching to the Black Eagles podcast, a Beşiktaş talk show.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru aksın kaybetti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Roma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
Hello, Black Eagles. Welcome back to the Black Eagles podcast. Let me put my microphone down here so you can properly hear me. Beşiktaş have secured fourth place, not necessarily thanks to their own efforts, although, yes, we did beat
in part
Gaziantep. Exactly, Sinan, like you said, in part thanks to the win from, I should say, our B team, I guess, on Friday away at Gaziantep, which, Sinan, this was the first win over the new version of Gaziantep ever, other than in the Cup in 2021. This was our first win in Gaziantep ever since the newly reformed Gazişehir or whatever they were called, and
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So I think they adopted the name now Gaziantep Football Club, but of course, when we think Gaziantep, we think Gaziantepspor. Gaziantepspor have...
Like where we got Filip Holoshko, for example, once upon a time.
No, he came from Manisaspor, but...
oh yeah, Manisa, but didn't he play for that?
No, Tabata, Ismail Köybaşı, I want to say...
Was that...
Ayhan Akman, I think we got him from Gaziantep back in the day. But obviously, that was a completely different iteration of a Gaziantep football club. So they adopted the same color, new club, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They are essentially
was Cenk at Gaziantep?
Cenk was at Gaziantep.
There we go. That's what I was thinking.
So I mean, they're basically almost like the spiritual successor to Gaziantepspor. So we did beat Gaziantepspor, I believe, in 2011 away. But obviously, this is a new club, in essence. Gaziantepspor still exists, by the way. They're just down the lower leagues. But, by all means, this is the
They're
new
functionally dead.
Yes.
Probably,
yeah, and this is basically... They essentially replaced Gaziantepspor. But this was our first away win there. In the league. Other than, of course, a cup win in 2021, like I pointed out. So, it's kind of funny to think that it took a B team to beat.
Yeah, a B team at the end of a sort of like lame duck season to do it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and I guess it's worth noting that Gaziantep has done a pretty decent job this season and in general of late of kind of staying relevant, staying mid-table, not getting in too much trouble with the relegation stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
They've, become something of a permanent fixture, which is to say they've probably, in Gaziantep, thoroughly replaced the original club, right? So in that sense, the original club is probably functionally dead. That's what I meant by that. But so, going to Gaziantep has always been something of a boogeyman experience, even back in the day. And I think it's because, it's a fairly sizable fan base on a good day. But even then, right, it's a sort of unique climate in Turkey. It's a pretty long trip going all the way over there. So,
sure.
It's sort of a unique part of playing in the Super League, I'd imagine. It's one of those trips that for foreigners, it's probably like, wow, this is the same country that that Istanbul is in, like where I live, So there's probably some of those events for I don't know. It's always had that mystique for sure, So it's interesting, that in like the least relevant match that I can remember, something of a snooze fest, and that's not even because of the football, right? Like that B team kind of went out there and did their thing. It's just how plugged in were we, right? All of that.
Yeah, for sure.
A good result all the same.
Yeah, and a lot of people beforehand were already writing this off as we were going to lose it. And I have to admit, after the result on the weekend against Fatih Karagümrük, I was getting a little bit nervous because I've been proclaiming for a couple of weeks on the podcast here, like, fourth place is secure, no problem, we're basically guaranteed fourth place. And then we didn't beat Fatih Karagümrük last week. Başakşehir and Göztepe both won their matches. And all of a sudden, they found themselves within, not striking distance, but 5 points. And we didn't have necessarily the easiest remaining schedule because we had Gaziantep away where we had never won before, Trabzonspor at home, and then Çaykur Rizespor away. And of course, Rize last season beat us twice, if I'm not mistaken. So those aren't guaranteed 3-pointers. And okay, we only needed 4 more points but to be mathematically guaranteed, even if Başakşehir or Göztepe were to win all their matches. And of course, look, on the weekend, Başakşehir had to travel away to Fenerbahçe, Göztepe had to travel away to Trabzon. But, you know, with Fenerbahçe losing the title last week, essentially, you kind of figured, okay, maybe Fenerbahçe are going to let their heads hang, and maybe there's something to get there for Başakşehir, who've been doing really well under Nuri Şahin. And Göztepe are always a formidable side, and Trabzon have been kind of in a slump as of late. And they almost got the result there as well, Sinan. They were winning until at a time when Umut Nayir scored an equalizer, and Trabzon were down to 10 men. So
it's actually, I wanted to say before we move on from that, because it's not a small thing. I thought that it was, you know, from a writer's perspective, such a great little story that Umut Nayir, of all people, scores what would actually be one of the most consequential goals of the Super League season. Certainly for us. Obviously, you know, Galatasaray and Fener have their own thing going up top. But, like that one goal secured our position in Europe next year. Killed the season off functionally, right? Like it made third place unattainable for us. And it made fifth place unattainable for us.
I believe so. Let us have a look here mathematically. So we are assured of fourth place mathematically because the deficit now with Göztepe is 7 points. And obviously there's only 6 more points to be earned. And the deficit with Trabzonspor is also 7 points with only 6 left to be earned. So really that renders that match next weekend against Trabzonspor at home. It's essentially just for the bragging rights. There's absolutely nothing to be gained in terms of the rankings. We can't overtake them anymore. They are locked into third. They're safe for third place. They still have an opportunity, of course, for second place, but they've been kind of squandering those opportunities as of late. They probably really should have overtaken Fenerbahçe at this point, but Trabzon have dropped a lot of points, and that's also kind of ironic because again, I've been proclaiming for weeks fourth place is safe, and I've also been saying we're not gonna overtake Trabzon because Trabzon have been very consistent this season, and wouldn't you know it, Trabzon
fell apart.
They kind of fell apart, and it's a shame because if we took maybe the league a little bit more seriously, and I feel like we haven't really been taking the league all too seriously in the last couple of weeks, we could be in third right now, and who knows, right?
And maybe even vying for second. I mean, it's interesting. I think for Trabzon, probably the worst thing possible is that the race for the championship just opened up a little bit, right? Like if Galatasaray had won this week and Fener basically had no shot, they'd have nothing to play for, and Trabzon could sort of snipe it. But at this point, Fener is going to go all out for those 6 points just to see what comes of it. Obviously, I think Galatasaray just has to win one and it's over. But if they somehow draw against Antalya next week, that would I mean, it'd be hilarious, I guess, from the neutral perspective.
Seems highly unlikely, but you never know. It's football. Stranger things have happened. 4 points separating number 1 and number 2 there, with 6 more points to be gained. So theoretically, Fenerbahçe still have a mathematical chance, but obviously next weekend that'll probably be done and dusted. And of course,
Yeah.
look, in the lower half of the table, there's a lot of matches still having to be played. There's a bunch of games tonight in about 2 hours. The kickoff.
Antalya had something to play for.
Antalya
Interesting.
does have something to play for indeed. There's a bunch of clubs actually, and look, this is also going to tie us into a little bit more. What I want to talk about later is obviously previewing the cup. But I do think, for example, against Sterling, who are also in the semifinals, they're facing Trabzonspor in the other semifinal. It's kind of
They might prioritize
Yes.
staying up, right?
Yeah, exactly. They might. I mean, obviously it depends. Maybe if they get a result tonight, let's say they win tonight, then they have breathing space, and then they can say, okay, now we're gonna go all out for that cup. But I would not be surprised if Gençlerbirliği rotate, for example, against Trabzonspor on the week. And I also wouldn't be surprised if Trabzonspor rotate against us. They're already missing a couple of players due to injury and due to suspensions. They got a red card yesterday. Pina got a red card. I think Mustafa Eskielac got a yellow, so he's suspended. So there's a bunch of players from their back line. Batahoff was already out injured for the remainder of the season. I think Stefan Savic has picked up an injury or a suspension. I'm not quite sure, but he's out as well. So they're missing 4 defenders. I would not be surprised if Trabzonspor say on the weekend, okay, look, we're going to rotate because we play on Tuesday, Sinan. And of course, that's all to do with the Europa League final being played in our stadium on, I believe, the 20th of May. And because
Which is pretty ironic.
Yes, and because of that, our match was rescheduled and we're playing a week early. But Trabzonspor are only playing the week after, on I believe the 13th of May. They're playing away at Gençlerbirliği in the Turkish Cup. So it's perfectly possible and plausible that they are going to rotate a bunch of important players on the weekend against us in order to have those players fresh for the Gençlerbirliği game. That's certainly not outside of the realm of possibility. It's exactly what we did in this game for the Konyaspor match.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised if Konya do it as well. We'll have to pay attention to their lineup, of course, today. But yeah. But maybe, we've talked so much about the rotations. Maybe we can have a quick look at said rotation and at the lineup, because there's quite some changes.
Let's crack in. And I won't do Gaziantep only because, we haven't been doing our opponents lately. Should I? Do you want me to do Gaziantep? I mean, there are some interesting names there, I suppose, but...
I mean,
what are your thoughts?
People can see it on the screen. Maybe pick out a couple of players that stood out to you in a positive or in a negative way. You can highlight maybe the key players.
Obviously, their striker, Mohamed Bayo, was absolutely terrible yesterday. He should have had a couple of goals.
His finishing was
that's
terrible.
true. He did get into chances
He was really good at getting into those goal-scoring opportunities. I was actually thinking, imagine having him instead of Mustafa Hekimoğlu. At least he'd get into some positions, right?
Yeah, exactly. Same end result, even if he doesn't score.
He has scored, I believe, 14 or 15 goals this season for Gaziantep. So, okay, his visor wasn't on yesterday or Friday, rather. But, in general, he's been scoring a decent amount of goals. And he scored in the home game. He scored against us.
I think he is their leading scorer. So.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
I'll say also it's interesting to see that Nazim Sangare is still playing. And I'm not surprised he's playing on a side that's actually sort of functionally kind of competent, right? He was always a pretty functionally competent type of player, I thought.
I don't think he's that old yet, though, is he? I mean, he went to Fener, kind of, poor career choice, probably, but he must be like 28, 29. I don't think he's that old.
Yeah, he's 31. He's
okay,
31.
Yeah, surprising, yeah.
Yeah.
Mujakic,
but yeah, I'm not surprised
in a positive way. I thought Mujakic had a decent game, and he's listed as centrally here, but I saw him out on the left quite a lot. On the way, I thought he was quite active on the sides, so maybe this graphic isn't 100% accurate in that regard. And it's hard to say. Yeah. It was they're an interesting side, is all I'll say, and certainly I think nobody would argue that we walked over them by any stretch. They actually put up a pretty good fight and a tactically proficient one, in that
I think we had the vast majority of the ball. I haven't seen the stats yet.
Yes,
but
that's right.
At the same time, like they were doing the most with what they had, and so chance-wise,
In the second
I haven't seen the stats, but it might have been sort of
especially.
even.
Yes,
absolutely.
Actually, those stats are quite even, and we'll have a look at them in a second. But let's run down
Yeah.
our lineup quickly, maybe. Maxim, for me, as always, for me, he's one of the colorful figures of the league, and it's gonna be a sad day when he does retire, I think, because he
I
has
agree.
been,
Yeah.
one of those players that has been giving the league some color for years now. It feels like. I mean, he's been playing
Absolutely.
in Turkey for half
Absolutely.
a decade or so, and of course, he has that one season. For Beşiktaş as well, on loan from Gaziantep, or was it a half season? I guess it was a half a season following the earthquake. So he has a little bit of a history with us, of course, and he's a really good set piece specialist and creator.
Wizard,
Get a couple of really nice
sorts.
passes in this game as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that side, and there's a lot of names that you might not recognize, but I think none of us would be surprised if in about a decade, half of these guys aren't like Super League regulars that have made the rounds and that we'll all know the names of because they've been playing for this side or that, Alanya or freaking, Gensler or whatever it is, whoever it is that sort of stays up and it remains relevant in the mid-table sense. Like a side like Gaziantep now seems to be good at producing those types of guys and bringing guys to Turkey who kind of fill in those roles. Anyway. On to the main event, obviously. Ersin Destanoğlu back in goal after, I would say, a competent performance by Davis Vasquez.
Yeah, for sure.
To my surprise, I thought he might have been sort of trash given the extent to which he hasn't featured. But, I mean, again, in Sergen's defense, Ersin has actually quietly pieced together a really solid season.
Yeah.
And I thought yesterday or the day before yesterday was another example of him.
Yeah. I thought he
quietly contributed.
Yeah, I thought he had a really good game, and I mean it's reflected here as well in his numbers, right? 8.2.
Yeah, it's surprising. Yeah. Usually Fatmab is pretty harsh on keepers and defenders.
And
so
I saw
even to see obviously Djaló scored a goal, but
and I saw
ahead,
a stat online, and I feel like it wasn't accurate in some way because I was reading it and it said, okay, Ersin is now the fifth player with the highest amount of clean sheets in the Super League, and I was like, that doesn't seem right. And I think it was Beşiktaş goalkeepers only, so that would make more sense. Even that would seem a little high, but I think he's kept around
I was gonna say
46 clean sheets or something along those lines. So I mean, he's 25 years old. I think he had a phenomenal game here. The thing that stood out to me against for Davis Vasquez was his footwork seemed a lot better than Ersin's. He was tested a couple of times against Karagümrük, but Ersin yesterday, especially in the second half, found himself in basically a shooting range for about 25 minutes where the shots just kept coming, and he made some solid saves, I thought.
Yeah, fully agreed. And it just sort of underlines the season he's had. And I think it'd be almost oddly good for both of us if he moved on this summer, in that he's reached a level where he can feature well wherever he goes, and it'll reflect well on us because he's our academy player who has actually achieved the highest heights you can in the Super League so far with us. Oh, my daughter's awake. Hey, wait. Hi. Your breakfast is over there. 1 second.
No worries. I'll continue to run down the lineup maybe in the meantime. So, Taylan Bulut was at right back. Tiago Djaló, as Sinan already pointed out, he had a goal, of course. He also has a good number here, 8.5. But I think that also sometimes, these numbers can be inflated a little bit. But I do feel like this was justified. Djaló stood out to me in a very positive way on Friday. 8.5. Next to Felix Urukay, who had a quiet game. And then Yasin Özcan, Sinan. I thought he was solid as well, especially in the first half. I thought he was really. He showed some nice things that I feel like when he crosses the ball or when he lines up to cross the ball, I feel like you have the idea that there's a thought behind it. There's a plan behind it. Whereas with Ridvan, I kind of have the sense of most of the time his crosses are, He just puts them in to put them in. I've criticized other fullbacks in the past, but I feel like with Yassin, there's more intelligence behind his game than there is with Rivan, perhaps. And we didn't see quite the performance. Like Thailand against Fatih Karagümrük had a couple of really good crosses. He didn't stand out as much to me in this game. I mean, he was solid again, second game in a row, but he didn't necessarily.
The one thing he's shown over 2 games, two games, Thailand Bulut has shown that Gökhan Sazdai had no place in the rotation this season. But no, I mean, I think when you look at that back line, Djaló came out, had a really solid outing. Not even just because of the goal. Obviously, that's what gives him that number. But, he was commanding in the air and kind of came back and saved us a couple times. Like, he was really good. I mean, Asllani, again, he had a goal and an assist. That's gonna give him that high number. Yeah. But he is sort of insufficient in that number 6 role because he just perpetually, when he's in that role, you find our opponents getting chances at the top of the box, getting in shots or having enough time to put in sort of a carefully placed pass or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I agree.
Did you
notice, by the way, Sinan? Sorry to interrupt you, but did you notice as well when Ndidi came on in the 70th minute, all of a sudden?
Yeah, that was done.
The game completely changed. I'm not saying they didn't have any more shots or opportunities, but like.
But not from there. They were coming from the wings after that. Yeah.
Between halftime and the 70th minute until Ndidi came on, like I said, Ersin was in a shooting range. And once Ndidi came on, that was over. There were still some chances, and they scored a goal, which was disallowed. So I'm not saying that the danger was completely neutralized. That's not the case. But it was a lot less when Ndidi came on. And to your point there, that definitely, Asllani, for me, he's not a bad player at all. You can see there's quality there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in the Super League, maybe, but not for Beşiktaş. I'm not saying he isn't a Beşiktaş level player necessarily, but some interesting points were made, I think, in the past by Umut Öztürk, who's a tactical analyst for Sports Digital, and he said, look, Kristjan Asllani is a very specific player. You kind of need to build your system around him. So I could see a Kristjan Asllani come to a Trabzonspor maybe, being made.
Samson. I was thinking Samson.
Maybe like a Başakşehir.
Or like Göztepe. Or maybe Göztepe. Yeah, they're kind of throwing around money.
Or a Başakşehir. I think Göztepe are pretty... They don't throw around their money too much, I would say. I think.
Yeah, you're right. They're a little more internal.
I think Başakşehir. That would make sense for Kristjan Asllani, I think. Because he had that loan spell in Italy with Torino, didn't go really well. So I don't know if there's going to be necessarily a huge market for him in Italy. So I would not be surprised if Başakşehir come calling in the summer. And I think he would actually do really well there. And I think he would stand out because he is a good footballer. It's just not, he doesn't fit our system. We have better players. Obviously Orkun is the main guy in midfield. So to build a midfield around Asllani doesn't make sense for us.
And I actually have to say, while we're on this subject, for all the hate that Wilfred Ndidi has gotten from certain sectors of the fan base, he has, with the emergence of Junior Olaitan and the extent to which he has absolutely cemented himself as that guy who needs to play next to Orkun in the sort of upper echelons of the midfield. As soon as that was established, Ndidi's role became very clear, and he has actually shown pretty bright in it. And perhaps, we've talked about, Man U has sort of been circling. Yeah. So maybe that has gotten into his head and he's playing up towards that. Whatever it is. But I mean, I actually think it's the role, and it's having two other guys in the center of the midfield that he can sort of function in his role very clearly within. But he's been good, and so. But I'll still I'm not at all going against what I said insofar as if we can make money off of Ndidi, given his age, we sell him. There's no question. There's no question in my mind about that. But yeah, it's just worth noting, especially for those
I 100% agree with you.
You know who I'm talking to.
Yeah, 2026 has been good for Ndidi. He has been solid. But I also agree with you. Like, look, I don't think he's a perfect fit for us. I think he is really good at certain things, which will make him undoubtedly very valuable to clubs, to certain clubs. But for example, like a Manchester United, I don't think Ndidi would work there. But like West Ham or Tottenham, or like Tottenham, okay, they're
especially in the Championship. Yeah,
no, but like
might as well stay with them.
I think like a mid-table Premier League side who maybe aren't expected to be the dominant team all the time. I think he makes perfect sense in a side like that because he's a great ball winner. He's good in the duels, but he's not necessarily the best number 6 when you're trying to play a more dominant brand of football. So I think for us, he's not the perfect match. But I do think that, okay, his first half of the season was a little underwhelming. Second half of the season, he's been solid. I do think that gives us a good position in negotiations in the summer. Hopefully an offer comes in. I do hope we sell him because I think we need a different profile in a 6. But, like you said, I think solid 2026 for him. He's been good after the AFCON, after losing his father. So... yeah, you're right, man. Like, he gets too much flack. He gets too much hate. It's unwarranted. Maybe it was a little bit more warranted in the first half of the season because, you are paying him a higher wage. You did pay 8 million or 9 million for him. And that's not a fee that Beşiktaş spend easily, right? Like, up until very recently, our record signing for the longest time was 8 million.
I was going to say, I mean, maybe that's changing, but...
it's changing a little bit now, but still, for us to spend, I think, upwards of 8 to 9 million euros on a player, I think our expectations are a little bit higher, and I don't think he necessarily meets those expectations, but he still has been... Look, the fact that Sergen plays him every game when he's fit says a lot about, that he is... Because Sergen has dropped a lot of other players to the bench that he, does not see a future in necessarily, and indeed he clearly isn't one of those, but I do think that, we'd be better off with moving on to a different profile of a 6.
And another thing I'll add is that Junior Olaitan, the phenom that he is at this point, like I feel like if we can keep him for a few years, we might really bank on him. And I think he'll go on to have a fantastic career if you look at what he's doing now. Obviously, knock on wood, terrible things have happened to worse people, but I mean, and real quickly, I want to add, I'm wearing a Knicks jersey on there. I did this last time I was here. The Knicks were like, their season was almost over functionally. After I did that, bravely came on air after a loss with the jersey on. So it's clearly my doing. The Knicks went on to win the next 3 games, destroyed the Hawks in sort of historic manner.
That's superstition again.
Yep, it's back. That said, I do have our jersey that we wore in this match. And for anyone who was worried about the mud stains that I mentioned, you can see
from your pickup game.
I got the job done. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Let's finish off this lineup, and then we can have a look at the stats, and then we can address a triple chance.
What have we got? Yeah, who was left? So we have the midfield. There was Salih Uçan and Kristjan Asllani, whose numbers, as we said, are inflated by stats. He was a bit of a detriment in the back of our midfield. Although I'll say he did show he does consistently show flair and the ability to do certain things. So you're right to say it's not like he's a bad player.
Yeah,
it's just
right at the end of
he's not a good fit.
Right at the end of the first half, he had a very painful loss of possession, which almost led to Bayo scoring. Fortunately, he missed, but he gets the goal and the assist in the first half, but he could have also very easily cost us a goal. And I do think this was a game. Look, it finishes 2-0. We never truly seemed. I guess the result never seemed in question, simply because we never conceded that first goal. But this did very much feel like a match. If they score, this could flip on its head. This could finish 2-2. God forbid 3-2. Even when Draguš scored in the 88th minute, was already like, fudge, we're gonna lose points here because.
And for anyone who's listening who didn't watch, he's referring to a goal that was called offsides. To our fortune.
It was this lad for a handball.
Handball. Sorry, I was gonna correct myself. Yeah.
So that was the 88th minute, and to me that was like, okay, they still have 6, 7, 8 minutes maybe with added time. They could still equalize here, and this very much felt like a game where if Gaziantep had pulled one back, it was almost a certainty that they'd get the equalizer. But fortunately, we were able to, withstand them long enough, and they were able to miss their chances. Bayo, I think, he missed a big one just before halftime, like I said, and I think in the second half he had like 2 more or something. So yeah, it's a weird.
He had
match.
A rough day up top.
Yeah. It was a weird game.
In some ways, you're right there. You got the chance.
It's funny to say that the result never seemed in doubt, but at the same time, had we conceded, I think it would have been
very much in doubt.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Let's finish off the lineup then.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Salih Uçan, who, I don't know. I've just started doing my rewatch. I was surprised he had some green pluses I didn't expect early on. Junior Olaitan, not his finest outing of late, but even that was, he had moments. He is like, for me, I want to get his jersey next year. I'm worried about my record of cursing players, so maybe I should just get like Cengiz. Anyway, speaking of whom, Cengiz Ünder was there on the right side, opposite Jota Silva, with, of course, the incomparable Mustafa Hekimoğlu up top.
That's right. Yeah, and we're mentioning...
You rarely see a striker with numbers like that.
Sure.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
And it's worth mentioning Cengiz only started because Milot Rashica picked up a slight injury in the pre-game warm-up. He was supposed to start, but Cengiz Ünder slipped in there because of Rashica's injury. Quick question, Sinan. I've seen a comment from Serkan Morova, and he said, in my opinion, Salih Uçan Beşiktaş would do well to retain Salih Uçan for another season to be part of the rotation. How do you feel about that? Do you think Salih Uçan, he has featured this season, in part over guys like Demir Tignas, who we sold in January for 7 million or 7.5 million to Braga. So how do you feel about Salih? I know we've been quite outspoken about him in the past. Do you think he's somebody you'd consider keeping around for maybe one more season?
Interesting. I think people are going to be surprised by my answer. And my answer is yes, I would. Okay. That said, I would in a vacuum in which I knew our coach was going to play him the right amount as like our 5th or 6th central midfielder. And what I don't at all like, and I've been on the record saying this, and I want to do it again. I really am not fond of the fact that Kartal Kayra Yilmaz plays underneath him in the rotation.
Yes.
For me, that has made almost no sense.
Yeah.
And Kartal has had somehow a very solid season, despite barely playing for large chunks of it. So, that's my 2 cents, I guess. It's like I actually think Salih would be fine as a deep rotation piece. He's Turkish.
Yeah.
Let me add another little caveat. Granted, he doesn't ask for like a pay raise or anything stupid.
Of course, obviously, yeah. No, I kind of share your sentiment. Although I have one different thought about this, is that I kind of want us to break with the past, so to speak. I really want to get rid of all the dead weight from the past seasons, and we've had so much. And look, I think Salih Uçan isn't necessarily dead weight. I think when I haven't had the feeling of whenever he's been called upon, he's been shit. No, I think he's put in serviceable performances every time. So in that regard, yes, maybe he is fine to keep around as a rotation piece. And he is on a lower wage. I think he is on like 800,000, somewhere between 600 and 800,000 euros a year. So if he extends for say 500,000, one more year, I wouldn't be upset about it. But on the other hand, I would also prefer it if we just bring in new blood. I think it's time for we've refreshed the team over the last couple of transfer windows, or tried to refresh the team already.
Yeah.
We've gotten rid of so many players already. But I just feel like, guys like Rashica, guys like Salih, those are still remnants of the Ahmet Nuhchebi era, and I kind of just want to get rid of all those players. But for me, Salih, for the right numbers, maybe another season, I wouldn't have a terrible problem with it for sure. I am way more worried about Mustafa Hekimoğlu. For me, he needs to go. Like, whether it's a loan or a permanent move, I don't really care. He just needs to be away. I don't want him near our team anymore. I don't want to see him in the Beşiktaş jersey anymore. I'm maybe in the future again, if he's like honed his craft and finally developed something he's good at, because I can't say. I really can't. I've watched him play every minute in his Beşiktaş career for the senior team. I've watched every minute of it, and I cannot tell you with a gun to my head, this is what he's good at. I can't. Like, the only thing you can say is he's got a good build. He's tall. He's broad.
But that's almost a problem, because it's like he doesn't seem to realize it.
That's the thing. Like, he looks physically, like, he looks adept physically, but he doesn't show it on the pitch. Like, he loses so many duels. I don't know. He does get fouled relatively often, so there's that. He can run, but he's not slow, but he's not fast either. And then, like, all the other stuff, dribbling, shooting, crossing, none of that. Like, he doesn't have that. He can't, like, he doesn't really win you headers. He doesn't have the ability to bring the ball down, hold up the play, wait for his teammates to connect. I genuinely can't tell you what makes him special, why he's talented. I can't tell. I cannot. And for example, with someone like Semi Kılıçsoy, even though he's got major flaws, no doubt, but you could instantly tell, okay, he has certain attributes that make him special, and I don't have.
He spent 6 months as like the apple of our eye. Remember?
Yeah.
I mean, there was like during the summer, granted, right? Like,
sure.
we went into a season with like, here we go,
Yes.
it's like semi time.
But like,
and then it didn't pan out at all.
It didn't pan out, but still, even last season,
He's showing flashes at Cagliari though,
yes,
too.
and
So
then for us last season too, there were moments like his goal against Malmö in the Europa League, and he had a couple of,
and the robbery where Kenny assisted him.
right. Yes, and he had some good goals.
Which would have given
He only
us a-
scored, I think, 3 goals last season, but all 3 were good goals. And the thing with Mustafa is even the goal he scored this season against Başakşehir, it's like anyone could have scored that, because it got put on a silver platter, empty goal. All you needed to do was touch it. Like, it's harder to miss that.
I feel like
than
he even
score it.
kind of like complicated it a little bit, whatever.
I mean, I don't recall it that vividly, so I'm not gonna say it whether that's the case. But like, I mean, it was a good goal, but it wasn't special by any stretch of the imagination. And just Mustafa, for me, he cannot be part of the team next season. He needs to be away from Beşiktaş, whether it's on loan or permanent. But he cannot be part of the rotation because he does not contribute anything. And even İlhan Mansız, I don't know if I sent it in the group yesterday. I think I did. He basically said the same thing. Like, we've been seeing him for a decent amount of time now. Maybe he's showing certain things in training that he isn't showing in the matches, because that those players exist. There's players that do really well in training, show a lot of positive stuff in training, but they just can't bring it on match day. Maybe that's the case with Mustafa Hekimoğlu. We are not privy to seeing him in training. That's also what İlhan said. But what we're seeing on the pitch during these matches, there's nothing Mustafa Hekimoğlu does that makes you think he deserves these minutes. Like, for example, last week against Fatih Karagümrük, if instead of Mustafa you bring on Jota, I think you get a win there. Because there was one chance towards the end of the game where Mustafa fluffed it. If that's Jota, I'm pretty confident that's a goal. And yeah, It's just things like that. Why is Mustafa getting preferred over other better players? Just because he's young?
Just to pile on a little, the canary in the coal mine says Mustafa Hakimoğlu will just be 28, scoring 8 goals a season for a team like Alanya or Kayseri. And I would argue that a guy like Güven Yalçın is already doing that now, and he has a lot more ability with his feet than Mustafa Hakimoğlu has ever shown. I don't know if he has what Güven does.
Güven has like 6 goals a season or something, right? Like, it's not like he's doing
exactly. Like
I agree with you,
and I don't think Mustafa has what Güven has even.
Because Mustafa,
so that doesn't bode well for him.
When we had Güven, at least like he was lazy and stuff and all that, and whatever. But he had what they call in German, they call it the Tor instinct, meaning basically goal instinct. He had that. He has that. He has the ability to pop up in the right place, to header it, to shoot, or whatever. He has that in him. And Mustafa doesn't have that. And that's one of the most important things as a striker, and he doesn't have it. Mustafa does not. Look, and I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong and this kid goes on and has an amazing career, but I genuinely do not believe. Put Mustafa Hakimoğlu in the Dutch league, in the Eredivisie. I do not believe he scores more than 10 goals. I really don't. He doesn't strike me as that type of a player. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I am, but like...
Yeah, I'd love to be surprised, but...
Like, for example, Kyle Larin, you could tell... There's a goal scorer in there. Even when, during his first stint with us before we sent him out on loan, like I think he scored didn't he score 3 or 4 goals in one of his first matches against Antalyaspor or something?
Yeah, he did. I think 4.
Yeah, I think so too. And so you could tell, okay, look, there's something there. There's a goal scorer there. Maybe not a consistent goal scorer, but and also, if you look at his career since, he hasn't been necessarily a consistent goal scorer. He's not a 20 goal a season guy, right? He's maybe, maybe sometimes he'll get 7 a season, sometimes he'll get 15 a season. He's kind of up and down a little bit. But
yeah, that's about right.
But with Larin, he was 21. He's a little bit older, obviously, than Mustafa. And Güven was 20 or something. But with Mustafa, put him in the Dutch Eredivisie next season where everyone goes and scores 20 goals. I genuinely think he gets stuck on 10 or 11, maybe. I don't think he gets past 15 for sure. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Should I do some comments real quick?
Yeah, let's
by the way,
let's do some comments and then we can wrap it up and talk about Konya, the Tuesday game.
Yeah. It was good to... we have to do the stats still, too.
Oh, we do have to do
But real quick...
Yes. Let's have a quick look at the
finish
stats.
Yeah, let's do that first.
Let's do that first.
So,
just to your point that
I
it was
right.
relatively balanced. Even the XG is very close. And that's mainly due to that second half, I feel.
Yeah, and like I said, we had more of the ball, 64% to their 36.
Yeah.
But the XG, we only had 1.67 to their 1.49. They had more shots, 17 to our 12. Although we had more on target, 5 to their 4. They had 30 touches in our box, our 15 in theirs. So that sort of highlights this as well. Yeah. They had 3 big chances to our 2. They missed all 3 of them by cough. And we missed none of ours. So we definitely won
as well. One of those big chances for us was the penalty, obviously. So really, we only created 1 big chance if you think about it.
Yeah. We completed 539 passes accurately at an 89% clip to their 260 at an 81% rate of completion. We committed 15 fouls to their 5. That doesn't seem quite right. It's interesting. They had 8 corners to our 2. They had 1 yellow card. We had no cards at all, which also doesn't really jive with the whole we committed 15 fouls to their 5, but okay. Real quickly, the duels, they won 61% of them, winning 42 to our 27. They won the ground duels pretty soundly, winning 37 to our 22 at a 63% rate. Aerial duels were split 50-50, 5 and 5. They completed 57% of their dribbles, which would be 8 of
11?
15. 8 of 15.
Oh.
No, because just
No, 8
probably like 8 of like
15.
15.
Yeah, 8 of 15.
Maybe 8 14.
Yeah.
We completed 4 of 8. That's easy.
Yeah, that's easy.
I can do that math.
Yeah.
We don't need Cartel for that.
No, we don't need that boy genius for that.
That's right. But so yeah, all in all, an interesting match. Not very impressive stuff statistically.
No.
It's even kind of more dire than I had said.
Yeah, I thought.
But I kind of got it right somehow.
I thought we had a solid first half, and I think I was pleasantly surprised. I was also underwhelmed is maybe not the right say, but like I wasn't impressed with Gaziantep in the opening of the game. Like the first 20 minutes or so, I expected them to be a lot more aggressive. Especially, look, Beşiktaş are coming. It's a B team. That should be like, they should smell blood. They should smell an opportunity. They should be going for it. And I didn't have the feeling that they were. And then all of a sudden, 8 minutes in, corner, we're 1-0 up. 22 minutes in, penalty, we're 2-0 up. And it took them a while, I feel like, to get out of the starting blocks. And then, obviously, they had that really big chance at the end of the first half with Bayo. But then in the second half, they came out of the dressing room kind of how I expected them to come out of in the first half. And I do believe if they would have done that, they would have probably won this game. But I think we had the benefit that they weren't super locked in the first half. Our reserves, if you can call them that, I think a lot of them were decently motivated to show themselves. I think guys like Ersin Destanoğlu, Thailand,
Jota,
Djaló,
obviously.
Jota. The only person like who didn't stand out in a positive way for me was Mustafa because he was invisible basically.
Yeah.
Like And that just goes to show you again that like he has no place in this team. He just doesn't. So, yeah.
And it's not like we want this to be the case for anyone out there who's like, "Oh, you guys aren't supporting our academy kids." No, like there's nothing we want more than to see Mustafa succeed. And we've all been willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like there was a stretch under Ole where he was kind of playing passably well as a left wing, and we were like, okay, he's like, you know, we were kind of trying to find the positives in it.
And he had that game against Erzurumspor at the end of the season last season when I think he scored 2 goals and he actually looked pretty decent. He has had games where he has looked decent, but there's so few and far between. And this season, I can't really think of any. And you know, if he would just like way on the defense and run and be an absolute handful for the opponents, then you'd be okay. Yeah. There's maybe something there.
And he should be able to do that, right? He should have the physical,
theory,
gravity.
Yeah, in theory he should. But like for me, it's like obviously, look, whether you sell him or you loan him, I don't really care all that much. I guess my preference is a little bit towards loaning him because who knows, right? Giovanni Bambronco saw something in him. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer saw something in him. Sergen sees something in him.
That's fair.
He must be showing something in training. There must be something there that we aren't privy to seeing in the matches. So loan him out with playing guarantees and see what happens. Obviously, I hope he scores 28 goals like Triple John suggests. I hope he does, man, because maybe then in a year or two, we actually have a player from our youth academy that can be of use. Like we've had other players like that, but right now I just don't see it. And I want to be wrong so badly on this, but I just don't see it. I just don't. And you know, the fact that people like Ilhan Mansız are saying basically the same thing now kind of makes me think that it's not there. And I'm right about it, which I don't want to be like, you know, I don't want to be, oh, I told you so. That's not my game here, you know. I'd much rather be wrong. But right now, I really don't see it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Shall we get to this comments?
I think we kind of did the bulk of it. So we had not the Swedish kebab out here saying Europe is calling. Yeah, that's nice. That's at least locked in. I mean, you know, obviously we'll find the positives if we're stuck having a bunch of Conference League qualifiers. But you know, let's win this cup and put that to rest. Even better.
And maybe we can.
We got the Sunday Eagles.
Address that comment quickly, Dosian, because with 4th place now locked in for us, with Europe calling, as the Finnish kebab says, what that basically means is if Beşiktaş win the cup, this won't really matter. But if we don't win the cup and Trabzonspor doesn't win the cup, then, so that would be like Konya against Şerbeli winning it, then Beşiktaş are going to the second qualifying round of the Conference League. That means we have to play 3 qualifiers. I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but basically it's the second qualifier, the first qualifier, and then the playoff. So you have 3 rounds. Yeah. So with this league finish, purely this league finish, we have to play 3 qualifiers to get into the league stages of the Conference League. Now, worst case, that's the worst case scenario. Now, let's say we get to the final, Trabzonspor get to the final, and Trabzonspor wins that final. Then we will basically be getting Trabzonspor's ticket from the league, which means the second qualifying round from the Europa League. That means second qualifying round Europa League, first qualifying round Europa League, playoff Europa League. Or if you get knocked out in any of these rounds, then you drop down to the Conference League, obviously, to the corresponding round. Now, obviously, if Beşiktaş win the cup, which is the ideal scenario, then we go straight into the playoff rounds of the Europa League. That means only 1 qualifying round. If we lose, we go to the Conference League stages. If we win, obviously, we go to the Europa League stages. So just to add a little bit of context to Finnish Kebab's comment there.
Yes, that's good. And the Dutch Eagle chimed in saying the Sunday Eagles. Yes, indeed. Well, what would you rather be doing on a Sunday, folks? It's even on a dead season like this, it's still Beşiktaş football. What else we got? Of course, Triple John chimed in. Sergen also played Gökhan Sazday, though I wouldn't make too much of his picks. I don't know what that's a reference to. What were we? I think you maybe misread that we were complimentary of his picks, Triple John. He said the curse is real. I don't know what that's a reference to either. Keep him for European rotation. He probably means Salih. Nasty Nas said, hell no, I wouldn't keep Salih. Mehmet Caner Ceylan says salam to you too, sir.
Hi, Mehmet.
And then, just a bunch of our canary in the coal mine friend.
Yeah, let's see. Well, he had an interesting question about Demirege at Braga now.
Yeah, where did that go?
I don't know, but I do think that's
got taken off.
I do think that's an interesting one though, because this I feel like this is typical Turkish mentality of when he's at your club, you're like, oh, get him out, sell him, get money, and then once he goes and he does well, it's like, oh, why did we sell him? Oh no, I am 100% behind the sale. I'm happy he went to Braga. I genuinely don't think that he would have had the future at Beşiktaş that he could potentially now have at Braga. I'm happy he's doing well. I'm happy he's playing now because he wasn't playing, initially. I think he's only played about 11 games so far from a potential 20 or something. So it's good to see him playing. He scored in the Europa League semi-final this week. Great to see. Hopefully he'll be able to play that final in our stadium. Will be special for him. But personally, I'm happy he's doing well there, but I'm not remorseful that we sold him because I don't see where he fits in. Because for me, this midfield needs a different 6. It needs a different 8, and he's not as good as Orkun, so I don't see where he necessarily fits. Now, doesn't mean he would have been useless. I think when he came on as a sub, he brings something with him. He has a little bit, I kind of compare him a little bit to Marouane Fellaini, where he has that height, he has that presence in the area. He doesn't score nearly as much as Fellaini, but he is a danger. He's a threat in the air. He scores on corners. He scores on set pieces.
Remember, he had some lovely long balls. That assist?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like for Marouane Fellaini, was like a more goal threat, and I think Demirege is a very good passer as well. So he definitely has qualities that could have been useful for us 100% in the rotation. I definitely think he would have been a very good weapon off the bench. But then the question becomes, he's 20, 21 years old. He has a bright future ahead of him. Do you really want to squander that future by him being a squad player for Beşiktaş? And my answer to that is no. I'd much rather see him go out to a club like Braga, do well, hopefully build his career and go to even bigger and better things after. And Beşiktaş have a 20% clause on the next sale, I believe. So even Beşiktaş will stand to gain a little bit from whatever comes in the future.
Well, and here's a fun side thought too, that if he'd stayed with Beşiktaş, he'd never be called up to the national team. So now the national team has good depth in the center of the midfield. Yeah. Otherwise, they'd never, he'd be illegal for them to call him up, as we all know, right?
Yeah, that's very true.
So I guess everybody benefits in the end. No.
Godspeed to Demirega Tignas. I hope he does really well.
I definitely... Yeah, I always cheer for former Beşiktaş players, especially academy kids. Let's be serious.
Of course, yeah.
So, 3 cheers for him. I love to see the progress. I love to see him establishing himself into that rotation. Yeah. It's not a shitty club over there he's playing for.
Sure. So, and I think the people, the Beşiktaş fans who are saying, "Oh, how did we sell him? He's scoring in the semi-final Europa League now and stuff like that." I think those are not all of them, but I think a lot of them will be the same ones that were saying, what is he doing in our squad? Like, we have a couple of people like that in our WhatsApp community. Like, they were at the beginning of the season, Kartal and Demirega, they're not good enough, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, these are clearly talented players. Like,
by the way, Triple John, you are incorrect. We played him a bunch, actually, until he left. He was a pretty serious rotation piece. He only got when Sergen came, he got demoted a little bit, but if you were a loyal Schwarting Report listener, you'd know he rated very highly in my preseason power rankings. He was a very he came into the season. I came into the season thinking that between he and Kartal Kayra Yilmaz, we had legitimate depth in a position we really desperately needed it last year. Yeah, and I'll still say I actually think keeping Kartal and selling Demirega was the right move in that you get good money for a guy like Demirega, and with Kartal you get a good depth player for maybe a decade.
Yeah, and the thing with he had 17 appearances in the first half of the season, 1 goal, 1 assist. Minutes wise, I don't know exactly. He won't have had a tremendous amount of minutes. It's probably sub 700 or sub 600 even, but he did get used, not always as well as we would probably have liked. It's the same thing with Kartal Kayra, but the thing I always said is like, look, Demirega is 21. You can get some serious money for him. 7 million is a good fee. Kartal Kayra, 25 years old. There's a big difference there. You'd never get a decent fee for him because let's be honest, like his market is Turkey. Which Turkish club is going to pay 5 million?
Kayserispor.
Yeah, Kayseri.
Kayserispor will pay 1.5 mil, I would imagine.
Kayserispor is not going to pay jack, and maybe Konya.
Yeah, that's true. 500K.
Alanyaspor. You know what they'll say? Oh, you know what? You give us Demirega Tignas, and we'll give you one of our shitty, overrated players.
Washed up shitheads.
Yeah, like it's no. I'm happy for him. I think this is best for his career. And I don't think Beşiktaş should be remorseful because he was never going to have the career at Beşiktaş that he will have there now anyway. It's just, there's different... You also have to keep in mind, Braga are a great club, but they are at best number 4 in Portugal. Like, they are not realistically competing for the championship. They don't require a player to do what Beşiktaş requires a player to do. If Beşiktaş have that ambition to compete for a championship. Now, whether we have been competing or not in the last couple of years, that's a different story. But our ambition is always compete for the title. And when you're competing for a title, you need more than what Demirega currently had to offer. You need someone like Orkun Kökçü, who has everything and who is in his prime, but already not. I don't want to say finished article, but he's at the level that you need him to be. Whereas Demirega at a club like Braga, he's going to have the opportunity to grow. He's going to have the opportunity to become better and then take that next step in his career. He did not have that luxury at Beşiktaş. And if we're being honest, none of the big Turkish clubs, other than not Galatasaray, not Fenerbahçe, not Beşiktaş. We don't do this well. And the reason for it is because the pressure is so high. The fans, the media, everyone expects you to win championship every year. Whether you do or you don't.
I'm gonna press back on our friend here though, because just to give you a sense of how we featured in our competitive matches this year. First match of the season, Demir Ege Tiknaz started against Shakhtar Donetsk. He started against Shakhtar Donetsk again. He started against St. Patrick's. He started against St. Patrick's. He was our first sub against Eyüp in the first match of the season. He did not feature against Lausanne, but then he came in off the bench every other game after that. He came up against Alanya. He came in off the bench against Başakşehir. He started against Göztepe. So, yeah, he was playing actually quite a bit, although, you know.
And I mean, in
fact, back then, Sally wasn't even.
And how would Montella know about his existence now? Well, maybe by the really good, strong season at the season before in Portugal he had. Was it Rio Ave?
Rio Ave,
so he had a really solid season in Portugal, so he should be on the radar. And he did get a call up and he did get a cap. But, you know, I mean, look, I think it's just easier to get into the national team when you don't play for Beşiktaş. It's just the simple truth. Like, look at Emirhan. I think if Emirhan was playing for any other Turkish top, if he was playing for Fenerbahçe or Galatasaray, Emirhan would be a starter in the national team. I'm not saying.
But Kaan, Samet Akaydin is so good. Anyway.
Exactly. Anyway.
Let's talk about this cup game. Let's preview it.
Yes, let's preview the cup game. Let's talk about it. Let's have a look at it. So, obviously, look, our season in the league, 2 more games left, but it's all done and dusted. We know what we're locked in at 4th. We can't get 3rd anymore. So, those remaining 2 games against Trabzonspor and Rizespor are not really significant other than bragging rights against Trabzon. And, you know, it's not the same, right? Fenerbahçe, Galatasaray, if you beat them, then you have bragging rights. With Trabzon, I don't know. To me, that game's not.
I want to see Kartal Kayra Yilmaz play. I want to see Taylan Bulut play.
Yeah, but Kartal's out for the season, though, so you're not gonna see him play.
Is that right?
Yeah, man.
That's a shame.
He'll be out for months.
He got injured at the end of that game. I didn't know it was that bad. Damn.
Kartal's gonna miss a portion of next season too, man. Like, I don't remember exactly what the injury was. I want to say Achilles, but I don't think that's correct. But he had a serious tear. He's gonna be out for months, so he's gonna miss the preseason. He's gonna miss the first portion of next season. So you're not gonna see Kartal Kayra Yilmaz in the Beşiktaş shirt for a while, unfortunately. It's a shame because he had a really good game right before he gets injured.
He did.
That's the kid's luck.
I know.
But
exactly.
Now, obviously, look, we might see some rotation, and I agree with you, Sinan. I think in those games against Trabzon and Rize, why not rotate, right? Like, also, it's not.
Let's see whatever we can see.
Yeah, and I think it's not really worth showing your hand either. In the weekend against Trabzonspor, like Trabzonspor will be doing without their a bunch of defenders, like 4 players are missing. Like I said, Mustafa Eskielac, Pina is missing. Batahov is out for the season anyway. Savic will be out, so they're gonna be missing their back line essentially. And I think they don't mind because they are our most likely opponent in the Turkish Cup final, and they are not going to want to show their tactical hand to Sergen, and neither should Sergen be willing to show his tactical hand to Trabzon. So I almost hope we play a B team on the weekend, because let's focus on Tuesday. The Konyaspor game, that's the important one. And we can't act like we've already qualified, because Konyaspor are in tremendous form under İlhan Palut. I believe they've only lost 2 games since his return. They've beaten Fenerbahçe, they've beaten Galatasaray, they've beaten Trabzonspor. They are in really, really good form. And something, İlhan Palut was always criticized for during his time at Rizespor was his inability to beat the big teams. Well, he's put the dots
That
on the
seems
i's
to not be
here.
happening here.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So, he beat Galatasaray in the league, beat Trabzon in the league, and then he beat Fenerbahçe in the quarterfinals of the Turkish Cup. So, they are not to be
I think he took that
underestimated.
criticism to heart.
Yeah,
he seemed to be especially prepared for them this time around.
He probably did. And, I mean, look, I think we are very fortunate in the sense that we get to play them at home. Because all of those big wins came in home matches for them. Away from home and at home, it's a big difference for Konyaspor. With their crowd behind them, all that kind of stuff. They just, it's normal. They're able to do more. So we're very fortunate in that sense that we do host them at the Tüpraş Stadium, that we get to play that game at home. And it's just a one-legged event. That's also fortunate because we don't just have to peak that one evening and beat them. But it won't be easy. If you look at our last couple of games, Fatih Karagümrük we played, we gave them opportunities. I think, against Gaziantep, okay, it was our B team, but still we gave them plenty of opportunities, I think, to score. And, Ömer in the comments, in the WhatsApp community said the other day, if we give these chances to Konya, they probably won't miss them. And he might be right, on a good day, maybe Konya puts two past Ersin. So we have to be really careful. And we have to take this match really, really seriously and show the necessary amount of respect for Konyaspor, but at the same time, go out from our own strengths and believe in ourselves and in our game plan and take the game to them. I didn't like the fact that against Alanyaspor, I felt like for 70 minutes we were standoffish and didn't take the game to them. And maybe that's because we scored after 15 minutes, but I don't like that approach. I want to see us take the game to Konya, score one, score a second, score a third, and then you can take the foot off the gas pedal. But don't sit back, soak up pressure, and let them come at you, because that could go wrong really easily, Sinan.
For sure. Yeah, it's going to be vital that the players come at this one with the right perspective. And I think we've seen them come out against Alanya very recently, and it was pretty clear that they knew they needed to bring maximum effort. And they came out and dominated that game and won it pretty soundly. And so I think, they know how to do it. They know what to do. I think that, the starting team has gotten enough games under their belt where they know how to play with each other even at this point. I mean, the one question mark is, because of El Bilal's injury, him being inserted as the left wing with all these new guys like Junior Laitan and Oh Hyun-gu and stuff like that's been a little bit of a rough thing. It's been hit or miss. I mean, actually, El Bilal has had some good games, but then also some bad ones. So it's hard to predict that one aspect, I suppose. Yeah. But other than that, I feel like we're primed. We know who's going to play. We know how they need to play. And they just got to be locked in for this. It's I think in a weird way, playing the full starting team in the league is bad because we've seen that with that level of disregard, without needing to be locked in, without, they come in with a little nonchalance. And,
yes.
I don't want them to be comfortable doing that. I don't want them to sort of establish a routine or that as a norm. So in a way, let's see the rotation on the weekend. I think now that I'm sort of saying this out loud, that's probably why we got to see some of those starters come in as subs against Gaziantep, even though it seemed a little illogical, right? Like, why would you risk them getting injured or whatever? But I think it's just to keep their feet warm. Yeah. You know what I mean? But without starting them or playing them significant minutes.
Yeah. And it's also, I feel like, what you're saying is true, where you'd run this little danger of, I think, this complacency, this nonchalance to bleed over into games that do still matter. Seen it even at the highest level. Bayern München winning the title in March, April, so, not this time around, but in the past, that's led to them suffering European exits, even in seasons where they looked tremendous. I remember a couple seasons ago, Bayern went unbeaten until literally until they won the championship. Then they win the championship in March, which was crazy early. And then they lost 3 games in the league or something after that. And they also got knocked out of Europe, even though at the time they were maybe the favorites to win the Champions League. And I think that's the thing. Once the pressure is off, players can't unwind, but it's really difficult to build that focus, to get back in it fully mentally. And I'm kind of afraid we've seen that already, because against Alanyaspor, I did not have the feeling that was our most important game of the season. The players did not look like they weren't locked in as if it was. And I'm afraid that that's going to happen again on Tuesday. And, Triple John just said that I would give them at least a 40% chance, Konyaspor that is. And quite frankly, I think if Beşiktaş are locked in and focused, I think I don't give Konya much of a chance. But if we arrive on that game on match day and that same level of the season's kind of over thingy persists, then I would see Konya knocking us out. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, because we have to show up. I think if we show up, of course we have to beat Konya. We have so much more individual quality than they do. There's just no excuse to lose, but there's plenty of ways you can lose. It's not because you have more individual quality that you're a better team. It's also not because you have more individual quality that you're guaranteed to win. No, because if your team isn't locked in, if they're not focused, it's very easy to lose against a combative, sharp side like Konyaspor. And
it's just one match, right?
Exactly.
It's just one match.
Yes.
Anything can happen on any given day of football. That's
100%.
the thing about the sport that we love.
Yeah.
And it's what gives us heart attacks oftentimes. But unlike our friend the Canary over there, I don't want to see a non-Big Four team win the cup. I would like Beşiktaş to win the cup.
I understand that from his
I get the
perspective.
sentiment.
I
get
it.
Sure.
But I 100% understand the sentiment. And look, if we weren't in it, I would very much share that same sentiment. And obviously, look, for us,
if we don't win it, I don't want Trabzon to win it. So sure,
Well,
I'd love to see Gençler win it or whatever.
It's better for us if we don't win it that Trabzon do win it, because that means that means better papers for Europe next season. So, but no, I completely understand the sentiment. I think one of the things I dislike about Turkish football is the fact that the Turkish Cup doesn't get taken seriously enough. Whereas in other countries, the cup is a much more respected competition. Like, for example, in England, the FA Cup is very respected, very valued. You see it with Manchester City for the past years have always pushed to go very far in the FA Cup while competing for the Premier League and the Champions League. So, yeah.
Coming from Super League fandom, it was actually really interesting to see how gutted Arsenal fans were about being booted out of the FA Cup recently, because it's, you really gain a sense of, oh wow, this means a lot to these people. It's not like, oh well, we lost the cup.
And I don't understand why that's not the case in Turkey. I really don't. I don't get it.
I've always loved the cup. I've always been a big fan of it.
I love.
I've always loved that Fener doesn't win it. That's a huge.
This is
like one of those things that they keep not succeeding with. It's fun to see that.
I kind of feel like the insignificance of the Turkish Cup has kind of been framed in part by Fenerbahçe.
I was going to say that.
Fenerbahçe, because they did
they
did go 30
Sour
years without winning it. Meanwhile, Galatasaray have like 15 Turkish Cups, or 16 now. We have 11, I think. And they're sitting there at like, I don't know, 7 or something. And they won one in 2022, I believe. But then they didn't win one for 30 years prior to that, because I think their last one prior to that was 1986 or something. So I do think that disregard for the Turkish Cup is in part created by the Fenerbahçe space, so to speak. Because for them, I think they genuinely haven't prioritized it because they've been more focused on the league. But you do see that, for example, Galatasaray, who are, you can argue whatever you want, but they have been the most successful club in Turkish football in the last 35 years, and they have still very frequently prioritized the Turkish Cup. And Beşiktaş, the second most successful club in Turkish football in the last 35 years, have also frequently prioritized the Turkish Cup. And Trabzonspor also have prioritized the Turkish Cup very frequently. The only club in Turkey that, whether it's on purpose or not, I don't know. Maybe they frame it that way because they do go out so many times or they lose finals, and Like, I don't know. Maybe it's a way for them to, I don't know, maybe soften the blow.
Legitimize.
But
yeah, take those L's with a grain of salt.
I do agree with what Triple John is saying, that I think it means so much more for a Konyaspor or against Sterberli or, you know, Göztepe, or like for these clubs, if they win the Turkish Cup, that means so much more to them. For us, it's just, you know, for us, it's the European ticket is more important than.
I was gonna say, it's not that it doesn't mean a lot for us, but
it's not.
But,
no. Of course, look, the last 5 years of our existence as Beşiktaş fans, I think a cup is very, like, we loved winning the cup 2 years ago. I think we were all very happy. We celebrated it almost as if it was a championship. I think that would happen again if we win it this time.
Al-Musrati.
Yeah, it was. But also the fact that we played and won against Trabzonspor makes it more significant. We've had cup finals in the past against Başakşehir, for example, and then you win it and it's like, okay, we won the Turkish Cup, but it also matters who you play against. So, whereas for a Konyaspor, it doesn't matter who they play against. If they win the Turkish Cup, it's always going to be a big event. Whereas for Beşiktaş, and maybe to a lesser extent for Trabzon, I think for Trabzon it has more meaning still. But for Beşiktaş, Galatasaray, and Fenerbahçe, of course, winning the Turkish Cup it's not as big of a deal because but it doesn't mean it's insignificant.
I don't know why. I don't like that. I don't like it. I think we should make it a big deal.
Yeah.
Because it's no small thing to be able to win when all the pressure's on you, and that's the fact that yes, it's one game, right? What we were talking about, and there's so much potential for chaos and you know the unforeseen. That's what makes it kind of impressive to kind of consistently win with that kind of pressure on you. So. I think there's a lot of value to the cup, and it actually kind of brings out different strengths. You know, puts different priority on different elements of a game because of how sort of focused it is on that singular game and what, you know, how bad one mistake can be for you and all that. So
and the thing with the Turkish Cup as well is that it, you know, the crunch time in the Turkish Cup usually comes when the crunch time in the league comes. So very frequently you'll see teams that are in an intense race for the championship to say, okay, you know what, we're gonna leave the cup for what it is. Like, for example, Galatasaray won the double last year, and the main reason they won the double last year, I believe, is because they didn't have any opposition in the league. And this season, they did have opposition in the league, mainly due to their own failure. Now, of course, look, after last week, it's kind of settled, but that quarterfinal in the cup came just before that. And that is, like, if they had gotten past against Sterberli, then they'd probably be going all out for the Turkish Cup now because it's another opportunity for a double. But that quarterfinal came at a poor time. And I think you'll very frequently see a pattern if you go back and you look. Like, if you look at the last 10 years in the Turkish Cup for Fenerbahçe, the last 10 years in the Turkish Cup for Galatasaray, I think you'll very frequently see them going out in quarterfinals rather than the semis or the final even. I mean, look, the final, you don't go out. Obviously, you lose it, but whatever. And, like, both of them have lost semis and finals. I'm not saying they haven't, but I think the pattern you'll see very frequently is quarterfinal is where very frequently they bow out, is because the quarterfinal tends to come at a time in the season where the title race is very tight still. And it's understandable, of course, that you're going to prioritize the title over the Turkish Cup. That doesn't, however, mean that the Turkish Cup has no significance, because the Turkish Cup is the second biggest competition in the country, right? That's just the simple way it is.
Absolutely.
Let's see what he says. Do you think you giving this much importance to the Turkish Cup leads to you accepting more mediocrity in the league season? Would you rather win the cup and be Trabzon, who didn't win a cup but competed for a title? I'd much rather. Well, Trabzon competed for a title, but I think this is correlation shit. Yeah. I think that you should try to win both, right? Of course, when you win a title, you want to win the cup too, so you can say you won them both. I don't think competing in one means you're not competing in the other. I think building a good squad means having enough depth to do that. B, I think, you know, the occasional cup match, you know, which the league
very tidily apportions out so it doesn't disrupt the league flow too much. I don't think there's any real causation there in that sense. And I would say that as far as whether or not we accept mediocrity because of our performances in the cup being better, I suppose you could look at a club like Fener, where you have no success in the cup, and you still accept mediocrity on quite a few seasons occasionally. So again, right? It's not. I think that's not a causation element, right?
Yeah,
teams have off years, whether or not they're competing in the cup. And frankly, when you're not competing in the league, you damned well be better. You damned well should be competing in the cup.
I think
because that's like the only way you can redeem yourself.
Yes,
and
I think
I would argue that that's not.
Yeah, and
how
you need to frame it as such. Look, there's only one team that can win the league every season. That's just the case. Like, there's only one team that can win the league, and obviously the league being your top priority is normal when you're Beşiktaş, Galatasaray, or Fenerbahçe. It's normal. But I do think you need to make a calculated, need to take a calculated risk in these seasons. Like, if you find yourself in Trabzonspor's position in the last couple of months, for example, I think, like, right now, if you're Trabzon right now, you're knocked out of the title. You don't have any chance for the title anymore. Even mathematically, it's over. Of course, now you're at the stage where you're in the semi-final. You need to prioritize the cup. If I were Trabzonspor and I would go and win the cup this season, I would be very happy with my season. I competed for the championship and I won a trophy. Now, if Trabzonspor goes and loses the cup final, this is going to be a disappointing season for them because they competed for the championship to an extent, yes, but they have nothing left to show for it. Whereas if Beşiktaş in a poor season, a mediocre season, or I would even go further and say it's a poor season, they can salvage that poor season and turn it into a mediocre season by winning the Turkish Cup. But in fact, I think us winning the Turkish Cup this season gives us a better season as a whole than Trabzon. Because Trabzon will be left without nothing. So...
And for the record, just to count... Sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Well, it's the same thing with Fenerbahçe. I think, you've been on the back foot in the Turkish title race the entire season. And the same thing can be said about Trabzon. When you are on the back foot, you need to take into account that, look, there's a very realistic possibility here that we won't be lifting the championship at the end of the season. The cup is the only other major trophy available to us because we've been knocked out of Europe. So maybe we should take the cup more seriously than we do. And at least if you win the cup, then if Fenerbahçe finish in second, but they do win a trophy with the cup, at least they'll have that. But now well, they do have a Super Cup this season, but Super Cup is...
And Triple John, you're wrong on a couple fronts here too. You say you don't accept mediocrity, which is why there's an election every year. Sure, but I guess if you think about all the regurgitated names that just kind of pop up in every other cycle and kind of you keep giving this another chance, right? Ismail Kartal, you could argue that there's an element of accepting mediocrity within the cyclical process that you kind of keep initiating. And secondly, as far as there's no weight on nobody's backing a president or manager who only wins a cup, I think you could very much argue that if Sergen does not win the cup, that's how he'll get fired. His job is very much hinging on whether or not he wins this cup. So, wrong.
In our eyes,
I would argue.
For sure. I think for the more critical Beşiktaş fans, for us, it's very important that because this season we have to be...
Well, yeah, it's the only promise that really he can kind of fulfill.
Exactly, and I think for us, in our eyes, it's been a very poor season. He hasn't delivered this season, I think you can say. And there's some excuses to be made, like he didn't have the transfer window in the summer and all that, but he also said a lot of bold things before taking the job and criticizing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the past and saying I would do a better job at it, and he didn't. He didn't do a better job. So in the league, same thing as Ole last season, and I would argue Ole did a better job last season because at least he won the derbies, and Sergen hasn't won a single one other than that one in the cup. So for me, this season has been a failure. Sergen has failed this season. So for me personally, my confidence in giving him another season very much hinges on him getting to that Turkish Cup final and probably winning it. I think Sergen Yalçın will not sack him if he loses the final. I think there's a slight chance that he might get sacked if he doesn't win the match against Konyaspor, depending on how that goes. And I think there's a possibility of him not starting next season as a coach. I don't think that Sergen won't start next season as a coach unless like Trabzonspor beat us 5 or 6-0 or something, like something crazy happens. Then maybe the pressure might become too big. And of course, I think Triple Jan is correct in the sense that this is a consolation prize. But also realistically, and I think we said this in the beginning of the season as well, Sinan, I think for us, our goal this season was compete, finish in the top 3, and maybe win the Turkish Cup. That was, I think, I'm pretty sure if we go back and we watch our preseason shows, I'm pretty sure that's what we said. Because this is just the reality of the situation is you're competing with a Galatasaray that pumped ridiculous amount of money in their squad. You're competing with a Fenerbahçe who pumped a ridiculous amount of money in their squad. The gap between us and them last season was really big. The season before that, it was even bigger. So realistically, competing would be us closing the gap. That's already, and closing.
That's what we were saying. Yeah.
So our goal going into the season was close the gap with Fenerbahçe and Galatasaray. I think we failed to do that. Theoretically, we have closed the gap point-wise because they both had worse seasons. But realistically, we did not close the gap. In fact, we allowed Trabzonspor to sneak in before us and close that gap on their part. But we allowed one more team to sneak in and another gap to be created in a sense. So...
yeah.
But the Turkish Cup, winning the Turkish Cup was always a priority for us going into the season. And it should be again next season because realistically, Galatasaray and Fenerbahçe will be favorites once again ahead of us. So the Cup should always be a priority going into the season. And I think Fenerbahçe need to get off their high horse or whatever you want to call it. Because they haven't won a championship in 11 years, going on 12 now. So maybe they should start prioritizing that Turkish Cup a little bit more. I know the pressure is so big on them, and for them the only real thing is that because it's been so long, the Turkish league is like they've been waiting so long, so it's like the only thing that truly matters. But I think they should probably realistically be prioritizing the cup a little bit more as well. I think they should be taking it a little bit more seriously. And I think as Beşiktaş, as fans, at least on the Black Eagles podcast, we have been saying the Turkish Cup should be a priority. And I'm happy we're in a situation now where we have a chance at a final, hopefully, and hopefully we can go on and win it. But we'll have to wait and see because there's 2 other teams that we'll need to beat.
Yeah, and I guess the only pushback, John, I have to that comment there is that I think people aren't judging Sergen as harshly for not winning derbies or for his performance in the league. Just given the expectations of the squad. Remember, we changed our manager like after one match, like a game into the season. We even, despite that, we came into the season with very tempered expectations, just based on, our main goal last window was, I think we got rid of 20, was it 36 players or something, right? Like our objective has been to sort of offload dead weight for so long that really, like, this January was the first window where we actually got to do something constructive and actually build. To some extent last summer, obviously with Orkun and a few other pieces, but I don't think people were judging Sergen as harshly for those derbies as they will for this cup, because again, the cup is a kind of contained event, right? It's like irrelevant what happened before or what's going to happen later, right? The squad you have now is what's relevant to these matches now. And I think all of us feel that this squad now is finally at a place where it's not bad. Like, we could actually be fairly competitive if we'd had this squad the whole season. Maybe, again, not a championship contender, but certainly where, like, a Trabzonspor is. If not, even more competitive theoretically.
We should. I mean, if we look at the season as a whole, we have had and look, everyone has that, right? Fenerbahçe, John will have a list of matches where if only we won that game, and we really should have won that one, and we really should have won that one, and if we won that one, we'd be in first place right now. everyone has that. But I think Beşiktaş really this season, we could easily have been in the position Trabzonspor's in right now if we were just a little bit better, if we were just a little bit more clinical, if we made a little, less individual mistakes. There were many games this season where we had 3+ XG, but we dropped points. Whereas, and the opponent had a third of that. Like Kasımpaşa comes to mind, for example. And there's other matches this season. Gaziantep as well, the first game against Gaziantep. So we've had many games this season where statistically we should have done better in those matches, but we came out dropping points. And I think even if we, if we would have done a little bit more better, if we had a little bit more quality this season, I think we could have been even in the title race this season. And for me, the thing with Sergen is, I don't know how you feel about it, Sina, but for me, if he goes out against Konya, I have not seen enough positive things from him this season to bolster me with confidence to justify giving him another season. For me, it really, really hinges on what he does now in the cup. And his ability to motivate and get that team locked in. Because like I said, it's very easy for teams who have nothing left to play for in the league, for their mental state to go to a certain place where they aren't as locked in anymore as they should be, and for that to bleed over into competitions where it really should still matter. And to me, that's part of the job for the coach. And if the coach can't do that after he essentially deprioritized the league himself, because that's essentially what he's done, in my opinion, then you do carry a big part of responsibility, and that should be taken into account.
Yeah, to answer your question, John, do we think that would be worse off with Ole? I think you must have missed our thoughts on that earlier in the year.
Which is weird. He watches almost every episode because
I know. Yeah, I was we're pretty pro Ole actually. I actually think we'd probably be better off if we'd kept Ole. Not necessarily because he's a great tactician or much better than Sergen, but just because, he was building something and there would have been less of that break in continuity. Yeah. A lot of the roster decisions that Sergen's making right now are lessons that Ole had already learned in the 6 months prior. And so guys were already playing more. And so, there's some, I don't think it would have been measurably different. We still didn't have the roster we needed going into the year.
Yeah, because if Ole had stayed, I don't think we make the January transfers we made. We don't sign Akbadu, we don't sign Olaintan probably, we probably don't sign Oh Hyun-gyu. So we probably would have made different transfers, and then you don't know how those transfers pan out. I think we've had a really good January window. I think all our permanent transfers have panned out for the positive. So in a very unrealistic scenario where Ole would get this exact squad, I do believe Ole would get more out of it. But I don't.
There's just so many variables.
Yes, I don't think
you don't know what squad we'd have at this
I don't
point.
Think with Ole, the summer transfer window, he had a say in those transfers. I think a lot of those transfers did not pan out, at least on how we wanted to. And I think who did we? I have to go back and think. Who did we transfer in the summer? Obviously, Tammy Abraham. I think Tammy was okay, but I prefer Oh Hyun-gyu. Orkun is the only one where I can really say, okay, look, he was great. He has been great, and he's only improved, whatever. But then Czerny came after him, so that's not fair. But I don't know. It's a difficult one. I feel like.
There's too many variables that are unknown. At the end of the day, we really never saw Ole's squad. He didn't get maybe he'd have played Jota more, and Jota would have gone on to have a good season.
He definitely would have played Jota more, no doubt. I 100% think he would have.
Right, there would have been no Sazdai or Cengiz. There's just so many things that to answer your question, John. These last couple, real quick. How soon do I think we'll be in the Champions League? A championship? Oof. I was going to say we could probably get second place as soon as next year if a few things go our way.
All hinges on what we do in the window, right? If if we can replicate our success from January and we have another good summer, like I think Beşiktaş right now is a couple of pieces removed from being a really good team on paper, at least.
Yeah.
But you have to think, John, what you have been going through now for the last 4 or 5 months without having a real striker. This is what we've been dealing with, but then in an inverted way, we haven't had a proper winger in 3 years, if you think about it. And that's us counting the last season with Gazal, who played like 50% of the matches.
Yeah,
so
on like one leg.
On one leg. So and like we haven't had proper wingers in 3 years. And maybe even longer than that, because Gazal was great, but he was, always injured. So really, we've been dealing with a similar situation as you have, and you can tell now how difficult is it to be decisive in big moments when you don't have a good striker. The same thing is true when how can you be truly competitive if you don't have proper wingers? Like, our chance creation from the wings is so bad. We have a striker right now, Oh Hyun-gyu is coming. I think he scored 9 goals since arriving, and he's doing it all without proper service. So, like, imagine giving him half decent service. This guy probably would have 4 or 5 more goals. That makes such a big difference. And the same thing is true for Ciro Immobile last season and for Abraham in the first half of the season. Like, I think Tammy was okay. I think Oh Hyun-gyu has been better. But give Tammy proper service and maybe we be building a statue for him right now, right? Like, it's all so important. All those things come into play. And my main thing, like, I'm really annoyed with Sergen because of all the big talk he did on television beforehand, and he was part of the reason why Ole got sacked, because he was actively sawing at Ole's chair's foots, right? The stool, you know what I mean? Like the
showing out the leg of his.
He was sawing off the legs out underneath him, and he's part of that. And he wasn't the only one. Günteki Donay and many other people in the media, Firat Günayer, whatever. Like, so many people in the media were actively doing that for months. But Sergen was part of it, and that, to me, that's why I'm harsher on Sergen. If Sergen didn't do that, I would not really have an issue with giving him another season, even if we do lose the cup. But because he did so much shit talking, and because of his part in the responsibility of sacking Ole, I think Ole was doing positive things, and I think we were improving under Ole, and I think he deserved to get another season at least. And getting knocked out against Lausanne was not a reason to sack him, in my opinion, because that was not his responsibility. And to answer part of your question, what do we think of our president? Getting knocked out against Lausanne was, in my opinion, 99% on the president, on Sela Adale, because he did not deliver wingers. And
I'm not fond of this man.
Yeah, and like, what? It's the same way that you're now looking at Saadettin Saran and saying, is he responsible for losing out on the championship? Yes, because he let go of your 2 strikers. And not to say that, you know me, I'm not a fan of Enesiri. I think he's a big useless oaf and a donkey. But he's still better, and he scored like 45 goals.
Nobody.
He scored 45 goals in 1.5 seasons for you guys. Like, he would have been better, and he did perform in the smaller games. Now, he didn't show up in the derbies, but maybe those derbies wouldn't have mattered that much because you have Asensio and whatever, and maybe the game against Galatasaray wouldn't have even been decisive had you not dropped points in some of those smaller games. And maybe with somebody like Enesiri who can function as a battering ram instead of Sidiki Sherif, maybe you would have won those matches, right? So, like, I think Saadettin Saran essentially sabotaged your chances for the title by bringing in both Guendouzi and Kante. He could have done with just Guendouzi and left the Kante transfer, and maybe instead of putting so much money towards Kante, maybe he should have put that money towards Darwin Nunez or something. Maybe you'd be in a different position right now, right? And the same, I feel.
And as far as you guys having, just real quick, but as far as you guys having second place locked down next season, Triple John, I think you've got to lock down a coach first before you can write the narrative, write the script.
Second season locked down, I think it's very bold to say that because you're almost certainly going to go through an entire rebuild again because you're going towards an election, and Aziz Yildirim has already stated. Has already cleared.
Aziz, you're gonna have his dirty little fingers on everything.
No, but like Aziz Yildirim has basically been saying the same shit as Sergen was saying. Sergen was saying, "Oh, what is this player? What is that player? What is this player?" And like burning certain players beforehand. And Sergen is like, he said certain things about certain players, and he kind of feels like, okay, I talk shit about these guys, so let's not use them too often. And Aziz Yildirim's gonna be the same way. He talked shit about Siddiqui Sharif. He talked shit about the Guendouzi and Kante transfers. I think he talked shit about other stuff. So if he comes in as the new president, you can bet your bottom dollar he's gonna get rid of a lot of those of the players that he framed as the problem. That's just the way of Turkey. That's just the way it works. So you're probably going to be facing another rebuild next season. Or in the summer, and then there goes that's Fenerbahce's single biggest issue is you guys, and I know you've said the same. Oh, but you guys do the same. You buy buy half a new team. The difference is you guys compete, and then you don't win it, and then you rehash the entire squad. You throw everyone out the window, the baby with the bathwater, and you rebuild and you start from scratch. We rebuild because our team is shit. You rebuild because you missed out on the championship, but you throw everything out. Like, how do you expect anything or anyone to stick around and truly fight for that jersey when it's a rotating door? Like, to say that you have second place locked in next season, quite frankly, if we were half decent this season, you wouldn't be in second place right now. If Trabzonspor had a little bit more squad depth, you wouldn't be in second place right now. Quite frankly, I think Galatasaray wouldn't even be at the top of the table right now. So I think it's quite bold to say that you've got second place locked in because, yeah, let's see who, like Sinan said, who's going to be your coach. How's that squad going to shape up? You guys spend so much money every season, but you always seem to spend it in weird places. Like, I remember a couple years ago, you were spending a shit ton of money and you had like 20 midfielders, 20 central midfielders, but you didn't have a proper winger. And then this season, you spent all of that money. You spent like 70 million euros on 2 central defensive midfielders when you had Ismail Yüksek and you had Fred and you had this and you had that. And okay, Fred wasn't as good as he was the previous seasons, but whatever. But your biggest necessity, the striker, you didn't address. And that's my frustration with Adala and his predecessor as well. Our biggest deficiency for last 3 years has been the wingers. And we keep tackling other issues first. Like, we make problems again. Like, again, they're talking about getting a central defender in the summer. And I think, quite frankly, with Felix Urukai, with Djaló, with Emirhan, and with Agbadu, with those central defenders, you can let go of one of them. You can win the championship with those guys. That's not a problem. We won a championship with Ismail Köybaşı. We won a championship with Tolga Zengin. We won a championship with
Duško Tosić.
Yeah, with Duško Tosić. You can. But the big difference is the guys that get you across the finish line are up top. And if you have a really good defender like Skriniar, you don't need a second world-class defender next to him to win a championship. But you damn well need a striker that can score goals. And you need wingers that perform properly, right? Like, and I've said this from the beginning. Like, for example, Kerem Aktürkoğlu. I think Kerem is a decent player, but he's not a 25 million euro player. Like, where are you guys spending the money on? For 25 million euros, you could get so much better quality than Kerem. And it's not even like you need the Turks, right? And it's the same thing for us. Like, why would we spend, you shouldn't spend that. Kerem, for me, at best, is a 15 million euro player. And I think you're paying a lot then.
And as you say, that's because of poor managerial choices and hiring different managers in terms of point of view. In the summer, where you're bringing Aziz Yildirim for managerial choices and a new manager in terms of point of view. So that's why I would definitely not say second place is guaranteed for you guys whatsoever.
No, yeah.
And look, he said you're going to get a goalie, a central defender, a right back, striker, right wing, left back, and that's what we're talking about, right? So you really have no idea what you're going to be putting out next year at all. or if it's going to gel, or if you're going to get the right players, or if like half of them aren't going to be bust, or all they could all be bust. You just have no idea.
The way Fener tend to do business is you're going to go after another Ederson. You're just going to go after the next Ederson. Right? Or probably what you guys will end up doing is who is Fenerbahçe, who is Galatasaray and Beşiktaş interested in? Let's go and offer that guy 2 million more,
10 million
two
more.
2 million more a year, and sign him instead. Like, for example, now we're interested in Grimaldo from Leverkusen. Well, I guarantee you Fenerbahçe are gonna go after him 100%. They will, because Fener doesn't do their own transfer policy. They just look at what the others are doing, and then that's why you keep failing, because you keep going after other clubs' targets and adding more money to it. But you need to bring in a coach and a president, and you need to have a vision. And I'm not saying we have that, because Samuel Abdallah sure as hell doesn't have a vision. I'm not saying we have that. But I think that's Fener's biggest issue, man. Like, you guys just you count, like, you know what counter programming is on television? It's literally like you program to draw ratings away from up to rival programs or rival TV stations. That's what Fenerbahçe do. Your transfer policy, and this is not a new thing. This has been decades. Fenerbahçe are counter-programming their rivals constantly. You've been doing it, like I said, for decades, man. Like, I mean, Miroslav Stoch, Mehmet Topuz. Like, you can go back very far. And that's not the key to success.
No.
And almost every time when you guys go for players we want or Galatasaray want, almost every time they bomb and they work out poorly. I mean, how many transfer challenges can you name that worked out well? There's not many, right? Like, Dusan Tadic was good, but you didn't win a trophy, so at the end of the day, it didn't really get you what you wanted. But yeah. Anyway, I don't know how this turned into a Fenerbahçe discussion again. we love you, Triple Jana. We really appreciate
the Dutch Eagle just had the same thought right when we did. Yeah, what are we even doing?
No, but
that's great.
We love you, dude. You're here every week. You comment. I think you asked some great questions about, what if Sergen doesn't win the cup. And to come back to that idea, just to put a bow around it, though, I think, if Sergen didn't do all the bullshit talking beforehand, I'd be a lot more lenient on him. And I'm kind of torn, Sinan, because part of me is like, if he doesn't win the cup, I don't have the confidence in him to give him another season. I think he doesn't deserve it because of all the shit he said. But on the other hand, I do think that I liked what I saw in January. I liked the transfers we made. And part of me is afraid that if we sack Sergen, we send Serkan Rijsberg packing, then we will have another unguided transfer window in the summer. And I do believe that...
Well, plus, Khan, who's going to come next?
Yes.
Who's coming?
Yes, that too. Like, who's coming next? Exactly. Like,
if it's Şenol Güneş, honestly, just take me out back and just... Put me out of my misery, man. I'm not going to do this again. Talk about the cyclical nature of mediocrity with our friend, the Canary over there. The Janary, if you will. I would feel inclined to suicidal thoughts if we brought Şenol Güneş back after all of the fucking suffering we've done. No, I'm exaggerating. I'm exaggerating. Sorry. I don't want to go too far.
There's a point where you need to move on as a club, right? Like, Şenol Güneş is not... it's not the answer. And we saw that already the second time he came back. There was a brief moment of, positive.
Respite.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, I think, part of me I want to be, if he doesn't win the Turkish Cup, I'm going to be really harsh on him and say, look, you have such a big mouth, but you didn't put your money where your mouth is, basically. You didn't, But I also think, like you said, like, who's going to come next and what's going to come next? And even if you bring in a new coach, like, what's the transfer policy going to be like? What's this? What's that? What's that? I do think we are on a positive path in the transfers at least. Like, I don't have much faith in Adala, but I do think Serkan Rejber has a decent eye for talent. And if you bring in the next guy, what happens to that, right? So I do believe that if we have another transfer window like we had in January, where we add 5 good players and then maybe some squad depth around that, I do think we have a really solid team and we can do something fun next season. It doesn't mean win the championship, but maybe, you know, finish top 3, finish top 2. Who knows? It all depends. It all hinges as well on how the opponents, like, if Galatasaray and Fenerbahçe perform the way they did this season, then there's no reason why, if we are good, why we shouldn't be able to do some, to pull an upset. Because I genuinely think if there was a good team this season, then they would be champions. Because if Trabzon had a 2010-2011 season this season, they would be champions.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Because Galatasaray now are on, how much points are they on? 74, I think. Like 2 more games. Like their maximum is 80 points this season. And I think a good team can get 82 points, 83 points. So I do think that if there was a serious competitor this season, I think they would finish.
They would have taken it.
I think they would have taken it. I think the reason...
You mean like that Trabzon Magic season of like a few years ago, right? Yeah, if they'd had one of those.
Yeah, no, exactly. So
with that Greek fella. What was that Greek dude in the center midfield?
Bakasetas, yeah.
Bakasetas. Yeah.
So, I think that if Fenerbahçe and Galatasaray are going to have another season like it, and I don't think that's beyond the realm of possibility, by the way, because like I said, Fenerbahçe are going to do a rebuild again. They're going to bring in a new coach, new president. We'll have to wait and see how that all works out. But Galatasaray, I don't know if you realize, but a lot of those players of this successful generation they had, kind of at the end of their rope. Torreira has been for 6 months talking openly about leaving. He wants to leave. He wants to go somewhere else. Torreira gone, that's a big miss for them. They're talking about, Davinson Sanchez maybe getting moved on. Osimhen, is he going to stick around for another season in Turkey? That's a big question mark. Icardi's going to leave. Like, Galatasaray are going to have a changing of the guard this summer. And their success right now has been built on a really, really good summer transfer window 3 or 4 years ago. Because if you look afterwards, almost all the transfers they've made afterwards have been, not all of them, but a lot of them have bombed. If you look at all the players they've signed, like in last summer, the summer before that, almost all of them were like meh. Like very few really.
I hate to say it.
So.
And I don't want to make our friend John too upset, but I think in a sad way, it's the way in which Fener has not been able to eclipse Galatasaray and win that title in all these years, and the amount of money they've been able to stack,
of course,
right? Championship money, Galatasaray, Champions League money, all of that money they're able to stack and then just sort of throw around at stupid things means they can afford every window. It's like 50-50 at best for them.
Not even.
But at their margins are such that like they're spending so much money and bringing in such at the higher ends of the margin. They're bringing in guys who are going to be a success because it's like Osimhen, or something like that. And then like all the gambles, all the things that like require an actual scout and like a good club to find, they never find.
No.
But it's like it's like too rich to fail kind of type. They're able to just throw so much shit at the wall. Of course, some of it's gonna stick.
Of course, exactly. And that's the thing, like because they've gotten so much mileage out of Muslera, right? Like he came over like 15, 16 years ago, and they got so much mileage out of him. But then 4 years ago, Torreira, Icardi, Dries Mertens, Barishal Per Yilmaz, Keramak Turkoglu, Davinson Sanchez, Abdulkerim Bardakçı, like those 7 guys, you got so much mileage out of those guys. And they've tried to replace, like for example, Yunus Akgün came into his own after Kerem left. And then they got a lot of mileage out of Yunus Akgün. But they brought in guys like Salah. Salah, they now reformed into a right back and he's doing decently there. But like he didn't work out. Really, Singo, they paid 30 million for that guy. Can we honestly say that he's been worth that? No, of course not. And they've had so many bombs that I can't even remember from the top of my head that have already left since. Like Zaha. Zaha was their big transfer and their transfer charm to Fenerbahce.
He became like a detriment. They had to figure out how to get rid of him.
Yeah, I think he's still on the books. Zaniolo, they paid 20 million for that guy. Where is he now?
Oh, man.
And they have been able to make those types of financial hangover mistakes because they've been consistently getting the Champions League money now, thanks to you guys, Fenerbahçe. But really, but my point is, because they have a changing of the guard coming up this summer, and because of their track record in the transfer window, I am not convinced Galatasaray are gonna be good next season. I would not be surprised, especially if Osimhen leaves. I would not be surprised if they have a really bad season. Even with all the money they're...
Who's gonna buy Osimhen?
I don't know, but...
there must be rumors. I want to know who's linked this year.
I don't know if he leaves or not, but like, there's a possibility Barış Per Yilmaz might leave. And let's be honest, like whether you like Barış Per Yilmaz or not, he's a pain in the ass. Important to them. He's a very important player for them. So who knows what happens in the summer? There's gonna be a very different Galatasaray. It could be a very strong Galatasaray next season. It could also be a transitional Galatasaray. We don't know. Fenerbahçe, we don't know either. So I think next season, a lot is possible. Trabzonspor could capitalize on maybe both those clubs going through a changing of the guard. Maybe Beşiktaş could.
For us,
I don't have a lot of faith in Serol Adale and all that to make it happen. But yeah, I think next season is gonna be a very interesting one. I don't think it's gonna be a repeat of the last 3 years. I think it's gonna be very different. I think the top 3 could surprise people next season. Maybe Konyaspor.
Yeah, I mean, and we're going in with the tempered expectations of knowing that we have 2 rivals who are currently spending ridiculous amounts of money, and although they're doing it in some of the dumbest ways you can imagine, it's like I said, right? Like they're gonna, if you have the capacity to make an 80 million euro transfer, you're gonna have some success, obviously, some of the time.
Yeah.
And so for us, that gives us the sort of benefit of being able to build a little bit more cautiously. And in a way, I think that's what Fener needed to really compete with Galatasaray, especially given that they keep failing and giving Galatasaray that extra money every year.
And you also need to...
and so in a way, they need to take a more wholesale, like, all right, how are we actually going to surpass... Right, they need to go back to their academy, they need to go back to bring up talent and making real money to...
Like, let's say Osimhen leaves. Like, is there another Osimhen in the market that, like, realistically, like that level of a striker that they can bring in for 75 million, that's willing to come to Turkey, that's willing to, like, because Osimhen was like, they got super lucky, right? Like his situation.
Oh my god!
If they didn't.
Oh my god! To get this many seasons out of it too, like I thought, like all right, he's kind of like he's gonna have a 6 months there and then finally.
Exactly. That was the initial idea, right? The idea was he was gonna go there on loan for a season, and then Napoli would sell him to a top 5 league. That didn't happen. But that sort of opportunity is not just going to present itself again, right? Like there isn't an obvious bad boy superstar striker in the market right now. So even if they sell Osimhen for 150 million euros, that's a lot of money, and they can bring in a lot of players for that money. But it's also very easy to squander 150 million. They just paid 66 million on Singo and Uğurcan alone, right? So doesn't mean because if they sell Osimhen that they're gonna bring in a replacement that's just as good. If they bring in, for example, Darwin Núñez, that's a very different player, very different,
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, and that's like an obvious one, I think, or maybe somebody else is like Alexander Mitrovic or something. Like there's a couple of obvious ones out there, but I don't think they will bring what he's brought. And the same thing is true, like, Icardi was an opportunity for them as well. And you just have to look at the market right now, and I don't think...
They've kind of squandered the Icardi. Like, they kind of fucked that up with this whole Osimhen thing in that...
I mean...
They probably should have just sold him. I mean, but because they didn't know if Osimhen was going to stay, and like because they couldn't really commit to building around that, they had to sort of have one foot in 2 different pools, right? They had to have Icardi as that, like... insurance, essentially, which Sinan, is fairly absurd.
Icardi has still, if you think about it, still won them the league this season because he did score as number 2, he scored like 15
Yeah.
goals or something, right? And he's almost certainly leaving. That's also good. Like, they're not just gonna have to replace Icardi. Like, where are they gonna?
No, but that's what I mean.
Yeah.
He's going to leave now. But
Probably.
like, even though he kind of
If-
low key had a successful year, his market is like. Remember where he was like 2 years ago? It was like, oh my God, how could Gloucester have a player like Icardi? And now it's like, ho hum, like whatever.
If I was,
like, there's a lot less
if I
excitement.
was-
The market's
If
depleted.
I was Fenerbahçe, like, if you're gonna counter program anyway, I'd throw some money at Icardi. And I know he's been a troll and he's disrespected Fenerbahçe, but I would do that. And yeah,
That's how you can get him excited to play again.
I think you could also get him motivated, because I think he does feel a little bit wronged by Galatasaray and kind of pushed to the side for Osimhen, and also like they supposedly haven't been paying all his royalties properly, and there's been disputes with the club financially. So I think, you could get at least one more good season out of Icardi if you're Fenerbahçe, and I think that could, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think Icardi.
He's not. It's not like. It's not like Edin Dzeko or something. He's like 40.
No, exactly. And I mean, look. Again, they'd be spending a shit ton of money, and that's what's. It's kind of going. It's going against what I said, like where the transfer challenge, like they never work out. But
that's a good one. That's a good one because that.
Yeah.
He'd be motivated to
and plus
screw them.
You need to take into consideration as well, like even though he wasn't their first striker this season, he still won them a lot of games.
Umer is calling you out.
What's he saying?
How can you say Fener fails because they just do what their opponents do, and then say if I was Fener I'd go for Icardi? I know.
I know.
But you have to at least understand. It's the poetics of Icardi specifically, though, because you just know he'd want to put up like a 35 goal season and just absolutely destroy Galatasaray if that were to happen. I think that's the only real exception you could really kind of envision.
I think he would be very motivated to prove them wrong for not extending his contract at the same rate or whatever. I think he's that type of person.
He was a god. He was a god for them, right? Like before Osimhen came, he was this generational Galatasaray talent who's just like, I feel like he would want to spank them.
And at the end of the day, Icardi, maybe he doesn't work his ass off, but like if you give him the ball in the box, he's gonna score. Like we saw it this season, right? Like he's like 5 kilo or 10 kilo overweight. His cheeks look like this.
Yeah, well.
But he's still like he's arguably like who's
way too much.
Who's a better finisher in the last 25 years in the Turkish Super League other than Mario Gomez? Like. I don't think I can't think of one. Like he's
maybe Drogba.
No, pure finishing. No, I don't. I think finishing. Icardi and Gomez are on an island of their own. I don't think anyone comes close. Yeah. So
Anelka.
Nah.
I don't remember Anelka well enough to really say. He had a really good year for Fener, but
I don't think anyone comes close to those two. So I think if you,
Talisca. You got Talisca. Oh, I'm so glad you guys got Talisca, by the way. Congrats for that.
Come on, man.
This might be a good time to wrap it up. I feel like we're just going back and forth with poor John, who's just taking it like a champ, by the way.
Yeah. Good sport.
Another pause for you, Umer. You could have typed in. You got any parting comments, Khan? Do you want to say? Like, when are we playing again? We're
playing Tuesday, the semi-final in the Turkish Cup, the most important game of our season.
May 5th.
Yes, May 5th.
Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo.
Game's at 7:30 Central European Time.
Yeah, 1:30 locally. So yeah.
We will be organizing another watch-along. Only the Patreon members will know what I'm talking about here. Actually, we did upload some shorts on TikTok, but if you're interested, if you're a Patreon member, if you're a YouTube member, whatever, if you're a VIP member, reach out to me on WhatsApp, send me a message if you fancy watching the game together. I'll be recording it, making some shorts out of it afterwards. I'll be putting the full recording up on Patreon afterwards. Not on YouTube because, copyright and shit.
Obvious
reasons, exactly. But Patreon allows a little bit more, so we'll be putting up that on, it's whatever. But go and check that out. Patreon.com/BishopsPodcast. reach out to me, guys, if you want to be part of the watch along. And yeah, let's hope we get the result on Tuesday. I am not confident. I think it could very easily go wrong.
I'm getting a little more nervous now.
No, it's far from a guarantee. Yeah, I mean, it's an important game. It's a big game. It's the biggest game of our season, and it's a super it's super important, Sinan. So let's hope. Let's cross our fingers, right?
And do the pen gestures. We can do the cautious kind of. As always, we will be back post-match to talk about everything on air, as we tend to do. Kartal will surely be back for that one.
Hope so.
It's a huge match. But yeah, check your local listings. I think it's ATV or A-Sport or whatever it usually is. Tuesday, the Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, 1:30 here in New York. Check your local listings. Of course, our next league match is Saturday, May 9th. We'll see you before then, though, to remind you. We are playing Trabzon, also at home. So we have a couple home games. Big match on Tuesday. Shouts to everyone for tuning in. As always, check the WhatsApp QR code right there to join us and continue the conversation we're having here live as soon as we go off air, which will be shortly, because it's very important that I say, let's go Beşiktaş! Peace out, everybody, and shouts to Ozkan, no comment, Derzavati, Nate Dogg, Nathan David, finish, not the Swedish kebab. Going to Europe, Kristen Berkey Cray, Michael Berry, Umer, Mr. Positive, Paz, Günal, Tayfur Yaylagun, Sarper Özdemir, Efes Ezen, Uzcan the Twin Oğur, the Pope of Chicago, Atilcan Malak, Murder Meher Mer, Oğuz Ozgulduk, Eray Gondur, Serkan Üzen, Ali Jed, Turkish Delight 28, Flacco 54, the Benefactor, Taro the Irishman Henty, Mario 1 and a 2 and a 3 Vargas, Onur Secer, Nihal Tariq, Sebastian Benan, Sporting Director Haynat, Omata, Take 2-8, Daredevil, the Vigilante Turk, Nasty Naz, Nasser, and of course, the indefatigable, the indomitable, the indubitable, Le Financier himself, the Dutch Eagle, shouts to you all. Bah, bah.